It's getting rather serious in the Big Ten and across the nation. The next edition of the playoff rankings released here in just a couple hours. Ohio State and Indiana safe at this point, of course, based on their records. Oregon should be good, but they still have a lot of work to do. And, of course, USC and Michigan. So much conversation revolving around USC and Michigan and their paths to the playoffs. We will discuss all of it, and we will take your calls for the next few minutes here on the Big Ten Live Show. Catch Corey and myself on the Iowa channel. We just wrapped up Hawkeyes Live, and of course, Corey covering Iowa football, basketball as well on from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Hey, Corey, how you doing?
I'm good. Sorry, I thought you should be on the left. I thought that made more sense.
Yeah, usually.
But, I don't know what's going on. What's going on with the formats? I feel like this is still not right. Why does that look right? Why does that look like that?
Let's try this one.
No, that's not right either.
Well, that's I don't understand. The best we can do. I think we should just stay with that.
Okay.
People out there don't care. They just want to talk
That's
football.
True. Yep. So yeah, I mean, what a week it was. Had obviously a really entertaining game between Iowa and USC. We talked about that last hour. Oregon just went right back to dominating. After a couple of weeks, I mean, a little game at Wisconsin was really bad weather, but Iowa was too. We saw them dominate Minnesota. Minnesota's been dominated this year by too many teams, Mark. I don't know what PJ Fleck's, what his future is, and I'm not saying he should be on the hot seat, but my goodness. Mark, they've lost. PJ has lost by 30 to Oregon, lost by 40 to Iowa, and lost by 40 to Ohio State. I mean, that's a lot of dominance.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He has one of those teams that is not very good, but they are just good enough to take care of the Purdue's and Rutgers of the world by one score. So the record looks pretty good, but then they go out there against somebody good, even Iowa good, not being one of the best teams in the country, but being a really good team. And they just got trampled.
Christopher Foote says Mark Rogers is a great man. I think
I'm guessing somebody earlier may have stated that I'm a great man. I've got a few people out there that I much appreciate that from time to time just state that I'm a great man. So I will not try to live up to that or will not certainly argue with it. I'll just take it. But Christopher's questioning that, I'm sure.
Christopher's questioning it. Joe Reza says Mark Rogers is a great man. There you go. There we go. How about that, Joe?
Thank you, Joe.
So yeah, and another team that's not very good is Wisconsin. And it appears that they're just doubling down on Fickle. I guess probably a business decision. That's a program that could really they are in danger of being the worst team in the conference next year, I think. We'll see. And Fickle, if the trajectory remains, they might be. Because I think Northwestern is, I don't know what they bring back, but Purdue played a little bit better this year than I thought they would. And we'll see what, of course, Penn State, UCLA do as far as coaches. But
you have gotten into a pattern the last few weeks of moving our show, which is the Big Ten Live Show, and everyone thinking playoffs and what's USC going to do in Michigan, and of course Ohio State and Indiana are dominant. And talking about the very worst teams in the conference right out of the gate. You want to talk about like who's going to make a bowl game, who's 4-6 that could possibly get to a bowl game.
You talk about the playoff.
Who's the worst team in the conference?
This is the lively nature of our show. We have you to talk big picture playoff. I talk big picture dumpster, I guess. So, yeah, I mean. Obviously, Indiana is in great shape. Oregon's in great shape, but, it will be interesting if they lose to USC, then that game against Washington becomes massive. And I don't think they get left out at 10-2. They've had too many dominant wins that I don't think a 10-2 team is in much danger of being left out. But
see, that is compelling. That's a great argument. And folks, I'm leaving the call-in line here. Corey's got to run in a few. He's got about 10 to 15 with us. Yeah, I will stick around for a little bit longer than that. But here's where we stand on all this. I titled the show something to the effect of or at least put this on X, something, what is best for the Big Ten, or best case scenario for the Big Ten, meaning you can go two different routes on this. If you just want the Big Ten to be safe with its three teams, then it's Ohio State and Indiana, obviously, just doing what they do, and they're both safe. They're both in. And then Oregon also clears the deck. They do what they, and we just got three in for sure. Or does USC, if they run the table, then they're 10-2, but they bring down Oregon to 10-2. Then you've got Michigan over here upsetting Ohio State. They get to 10-2. And then this puts USC in a good spot because they would have beaten both Michigan by 3 scores and Oregon. But Michigan fans would claim, and I totally get it, despite a weak schedule, we just beat the number 1 team in the country. And then Notre Dame, though, would be a 10-2 team that has the head-to-head. So USC's the head-to-head king within the Big Ten, but Notre Dame beat USC by a solid 10 points. And then you start comparing these Big Ten records and resumes against the SEC, who's going to have a stack of 10-2 teams, and it gets somewhat dicey.
Well, I will say this. I am not an advocate for Notre Dame really ever. You know my stance on that. I believe they should be evaluated as a 10-3 team since they choose not to play in a conference. Now, I know what you're going to say. Say, well, there's other Big Ten teams that end up 10-2 that don't play in the conference championship game. That is true now with the expanded playoff. It used to be that if you're 10-2, you're likely going to be, well, I shouldn't say that because the Big Ten East had years, I'm sure, right, where Ohio State didn't make it at 11-1 to the Big Ten championship game. And they got left out of the playoff at 11-1. But that was the 4-team playoff. So, I would like to see chaos now that Iowa's out of it, because I would like to see the committee have to leave out a name brand like Michigan or Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame's schedule is not very good. We've discussed that, right? So I don't know how does the committee view them? They have the name, they're going to have the record, but I mean, Mark, how do you view Notre Dame based upon everything?
Well, to me, the resume is different than my evaluation of the team. I think Notre Dame's one of the 10 best teams in America, but their resume has some issues because they played 2 really good teams and they lost to both of them. Now, they lost about as close as you can lose to both of them. Now they've run through this string of what would have to be 10 consecutive wins, and the best win is, well, it's USC for sure.
Well, they dominated at Pitt, and that was a team that was that's ranked in the top.
Getting
25.
there, but USC's by far their best win. Pitt's not a very good football team.
Well, the committee
has a decent record, but
the committee doesn't agree with you. The committee's job is not to rank based on record. The committee's job is based
on what they're talking about. If they
so the committee doesn't know what they're talking about now. So it's not just the AP team. So it's not just the AP poll. The committee doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay.
In this case, yeah.
Okay. Well,
they're not a very good football team.
All right.
That is probably Notre Dame's second best win. You could argue Navy. They beat them by 39 points. They forget the score against Pitt. Notre Dame was so much. I watched that game. These 2 teams played in completely different universes. They could have won that game by 60.
I think that helps that win does help Notre Dame regardless because the committee. Absolutely. The committee must view them slightly differently than you do. And so that's going to help Notre Dame's resume substantially to go on the road and win by 3 scores.
Well, I had Pitt ranked as well going into last week. I hit them at 25.
So you're saying they're not a very good football team based on what you saw Saturday then?
Yeah, they're not very good.
Okay. Okay, well, fine.
Every win that they have in the ACC is against a horrible team.
I think what's interesting is you have a Navy team that went out and beat South Florida, and I know you're not going to give any respect to a team from the AAC. You know, I get that. That's kind of how you roll. Well,
no, I think the American Conference is really good.
You don't like Navy. You don't think they're legitimate. We've had this discussion. You don't think
no, they're not.
See, that's my well. Then
None
why
of those
talk about
teams are among the 12 best teams in the country,
it?
or even the
Well,
top 30 teams in the
I'm
country.
not saying they are, but Navy never got early in the year when Navy was rolling. Like they didn't get beat until what, late October.
Yeah.
They were never brought up by you in a
No,
conversation for
they didn't
the.
play anyone.
They don't
They
have
played a
to.
bunch of horrible teams.
They don't have to because they play in the G5 and the G5 gets an AQ. We're not talking about ranking. We're talking about who gets an AQ because the G5
Sure.
gets somebody in. What I'm saying is last week, okay, they had lost to North Texas. North Texas scores a lot of points, but that was one loss. I thought maybe they would test Notre Dame. They did not. Notre Dame throttled them, okay, by 40. But then last week, this past weekend, Navy took down South Florida, who has had one of, a couple of the best wins of any G5 team this year. So Navy's intriguing. I don't think they probably get in with 2 losses. That would be no way does that happen, even with that win against South Florida, because South Florida's wins are better than even Navy's wins. But my point is 2 good weeks for Notre Dame, regardless of how you see Navy. To dominate Navy and Pitt, boy, I'd be excited if I was a fan of the Irish. What's going on with Minnesota Dave? What is happening here?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how
this all
screen
got.
has just become
There we go.
completely.
Why is there this big gap between me and him?
I have no idea. Let's not even try to deal with it. I am a great man and a great Buckeye as well. Minnesota Dave is a great Gopher.
Yes,
How
I just
you
don't
doing,
want to be
Dave?
that close to a Hawkeye fan, I guess.
Yeah,
Well,
that's why there's a big gap.
StreamYard's
way-
intuitive.
The way Minnesota has lost to Ohio State, Oregon, and Iowa, you have reason just to crawl back into bed and never do anything ever again. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, of course, Dave.
Well, I expected us to lose to those teams. We still own Nebraska. Still got Nebraska.
You still that's absolutely right. Minnesota does
You
still
and
own
everyone
Nebraska.
else.
Hey, is there any, Dave? Can you tell me, is there any validity to what I said earlier about how PJ is not on the hot seat, but there's got to be some people who are getting a little restless by the dominating fashion in which they've lost.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think the blowout between like Iowa was sort of a really big, like people are kind of like talking like, okay, now we're now getting crushed by Iowa. Like that's
they didn't just get crushed by Iowa. They lost by 40. That's
Corey, I turned off the TV in the fastest time ever to watching a Gopher game. Once the pick 6 happened, I was done.
I mean, Mark, you have to admit, to lose by 40 to Ohio State, 40 to Iowa, and by 30 to Oregon.
Sure.
That's a lot of points.
Good. And I didn't see the Iowa game. I saw most of the Ohio State game. I saw the Oregon game until it was just, I'm not watching the last 10 minutes of that thing. But statistically, that might have been the biggest beatdown. Oregon at one point had like 350 yards to like 70. Like they were just annihilating them.
The only time we stopped them was near the end of the game, and they caused a fumble. And then now there was maybe 2 questionable touchdown calls. The fumble, the running back that drops the ball basically before he crosses the end zone and then picks it up and then drops it again, and they call that a touchdown. And then
okay.
And then the was he out of bounds or was he inbounds type catch where the ball, like the foot was on the line and it should have never been called a touchdown. And he doesn't totally control the ball and they still called it a touchdown. So, I'm not going to totally complain about it. They would probably score it anyway afterwards.
Yeah. A couple of calls maybe made it a 30-point game as opposed to a 21-point game.
So, Dave, Corey's got to go here in a second. Why did you call? I guess you jumped on and we started asking you questions. So what did you want to bring up?
Let's just talk about what's going on with Michigan and USC with this maybe we're going to want to go independent type thing.
Oh, all that business. Yeah.
What's the deal there? I guess I haven't even heard this. Michigan is talking about going independent.
Michigan and USC are talking about going independent.
What?
They don't like this capital investment plan by the Big Ten. And really, I can't take it any further than that. Minnesota Dave, I've not looked into it. I saw a bunch of articles. I've not read them yet to really look into it. I don't know what their gripe is. I think USC's gripe is that they would be placed on like a tier 2 below Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State.
Well, they haven't been that good until this year.
Well, I would think it would have to do with how much money you bring into the conference.
It is also interesting. I mean, I know it was raining hard. I got a guy who follows our show closely, and he's in our Discord, and he sent a picture from Saturday, that USC game, because he was there. He lives in LA. And they showed it on the television screen. I mean, you know this, Minnesota Dave. If I can't speak for TCF, well, the old TCF Bank. What's the new bank now that sponsors it? It doesn't matter. Westinghouse.
We'll just call it the bank. Just call it the bank.
The bank stadium. The bank. I can't speak for Minnesota, but I know at Iowa, the week before, raining, it was packed. It was packed, cold and raining. You go out there, Mark, that's a USC team that is playing for a playoff berth, and that thing looked like it was half full.
Yeah.
I don't know what that represents. I mean, I always hear about how people in California don't care much about college football, but USC is still a blue blood. So we need to have a discussion at some point, Mark, when we have more time, where you teach me about USC, because I know they have history. I know they produce great NFL players, Heisman Trophy winners, etc. But what's the status of that program? There's obviously a lot of money there, but how do you have that? How do you have a team that's still in consideration for a Big Ten championship berth, a college football playoff berth, a massive game on the line, mid-afternoon kick? I know it's, I guess, 12:30 their time, and there's nobody in the end zones.
Yeah,
I know.
It's so weird.
LA's never been a big sports city. They like to think.
Then how are they a blue blood? How is USC USC? Tell me that, Mark. How have they become USC? How do they still take that aura? Why are they still considered, like what you just said? If they're upset, I'm hearing of it. If they're upset because they're not considered the top tier, why would they? Just tell me what it is about them other than history.
Okay, so let's take these one at a time. To be considered top tier, and this is a complete educated guess because I've not gone through the stipulations, but I would guess it has nothing to do with who's winning the games on the field. It would have to do with who's bringing the value, the TV ratings, etc. You know, like if Northwestern lost every game in the Big Ten, but for some reason everybody loved watching Northwestern football and they got the best TV ratings, then they would bring in the most money.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, USC is a blue blood because they have one of the best records in the history of the sport in terms of Rose Bowl. Their Rose Bowl record, for one thing, is just insane. They have won. Ohio State and Michigan have won the second most Rose Bowls, and they're still striving to get to 10. Ohio State and Michigan both have like 9 or 8 Rose Bowl wins. USC has 26.
So I guess
Michigan's lost the most Rose Bowls.
Yes.
Is
that I'm not going to go
anomaly?
step by step through USC's lineage, but they've obviously, that from a winning standpoint, championships, Heisman Trophy winners, all of it is just one of the best in the sport.
Is that an anomaly, though? My question to you then, because you have a feel for college football as a whole, is that an anomaly? Are there a lot of other examples of football programs that have been wildly successful without wild fan support? Or is that maybe the largest gap that you can think of? Is Miami? There's a lot of.
Yes, Miami's somewhat like that as well.
Okay, that's the only other program I could have even guessed on.
And somebody that lives out there would have to say, or somebody that has the knowledge of where the stadium's located versus campus, because that does have, I believe there's a separation between, that stadium's not on campus.
And it also, to me, the correlation between those two teams is two big cities that are big pro sports cities.
Yes.
So that makes it hard, but yet they've had success. I just find that interesting.
And it's difficult when the students can't just walk to the game. Like they have to take a bus and it's 30 minutes away and all that other business. And to Dave's point, I'm not going to state it to the extent that Dave said LA's not a sports city. I think LA is a great sports city. If you are a big winner, it's a great sports city.
Yeah.
They're not going to stick around like Nebraska football. They're not going to tolerate that. You have to be great. And then they'll show up. So for USC or for LA mindset, USC's not great yet. They're not back. They haven't proven anything. Now, if they do something this year, maybe go to a playoff and then start out next year like ranked in the top 5 in the country, then people will show up. Because during Pete Carroll's era, that place was rocking with 92,000 people most games. But they have to be perceived as great.
I like
just
this.
You're okay.
This is a conversation we should have in the off season.
Yes.
You know, like ranking fan support, like most supported programs versus
least supported programs.
Well, that, but also just, trying to find correlations between fan support and, success in the last, 20 years or 50 years or 100 years.
And who are the outliers? The great programs that have little support versus the bad programs, Nebraska, that have great support.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and Nebraska has had success. That's the other hard part about that. Has USC ever had great support? Sure, at some point they've had really good support.
That's what I'm saying. When Pete Carroll was there and they were contending for national championships every year.
It's just a very fair weather fan base, like was said here in the chat by somebody.
Yes.
Dural MVP. So
yes.
Minnesota rebuilding since 1967.
Corey, we know that you need to head out, but you've got a special event coming up next Wednesday.
Yeah, we've got the big show coming up in Omaha. I'll try to get this banner. Let's see. Here we go. RTI Threads, Big Grove Brewery, part of this. If you live even if you're not an Iowa fan, if you're just a fan of college football or our Big Ten show, and you live in the Council Bluffs, Omaha area, or even within driving distance, Des Moines not too far, stop on over to Big Grove Brewery. The new location, the tap room is awesome. This is the first time I'll see it in person, but it looks awesome. Food's great. Beer's great. And we're going to watch the women's basketball game after our live show. So the live show starts at 5 Central Time, and it'll go for about an hour and a half, and then we'll have an Iowa women's basketball watch party at 6:30 and just hang out. So meet me and potentially others. We'll announce more information on this here in the coming days. But, and you also have some opportunity to win some gears, purchase some gear potentially for some Iowa athletes. And it's 2 days prior to Iowa, Nebraska in Lincoln. So there's reason if you can plan a trip, if you're from Iowa and you want to plan a trip to get over to the Iowa-Nebraska game, spend a couple of days in the area and head out to Big Grove on November 26th. That's a Wednesday. Our show will start at 5 p.m.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go to Omaha just for the College World Series.
I was there last year, Dave, or this year, I should say, for the College World Series. It's an event. Omaha's talk about a great sports town. I mean that seriously. Say what you want about Nebraska. Omaha's a great sports city. It really is. Maybe it's not the LA market, right? Totally apples to watermelons, but between the College World Series and the diversity of Nebraska fans and Iowa fans, I'm sure there's some Iowa State fans too, because it's still Council Bluffs, Omaha area. It's a great place, and there have been some phenomenal people that have come out of even Iowa people. I believe Andre Woolridge was Omaha. Drew Ott, a great Iowa defensive lineman. He's got a big farm operation in Nebraska. And so I hope we can get a nice crowd out there. I'm sure there's plenty of people that watch our show that live in that area. So you got about a week to plan, folks.
It's funny to say that because, I just been looking at recruiting and in-state recruiting in Nebraska. Most of those kids are going to Iowa.
Iowa does. Yeah, they do a lot of recruiting.
Iowa State,
in
too.
That area.
Iowa State has a big time recruiting advantage in Nebraska now.
Yeah, Darian Jones is one. Michael Burt, Iowa tight end. He's from Nebraska, from Omaha. Logan Jones is from Council Bluffs. He might be their best player on the team this year, Mark. He's a Council Bluffs native. And there's others we could go down the list.
Logan Jones, by the way, got a vote for the Remington Trophy.
A
Remington
vote,
Award.
a single vote.
Well, I know I can account for one.
Yeah. Well, I don't have voting rights, but I'd give him one too. He was pretty good. He looked pretty. I tell you, I know I'm not an evaluator of offensive line play, but he sure looks the part.
Absolutely. All right, Corey. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, let me know if you figure out this formatting issue. All right, thanks, Dave. Appreciate you
See
being
you later,
here, sir.
Corey.
Yep, you guys take care.
All right. Anything else out of you, Dave? There we go.
Nothing really much. That was just really the question I was gonna have about the USC and Michigan thing, because I just don't understand why they would want to leave and be independent and then have the headache of trying to get like a TV deal.
Well, I'm guessing it's a power play. It's a power move. I don't think they want to leave. They want to maybe leverage something within the conference. Get their way.
Yeah. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. Well, Mark, you probably have some other calls, and
Got a few here.
And I'll just let you go right now then.
Thanks, Dave. Get those steps in.
All right. Talk to you later.
Alrighty.
Bye-bye.
Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football with the Big Ten Live Show, and reminding everyone that we will be live once the rankings are revealed. And I guess ESPN once again is going to force me to keep track of a basketball game, because at halftime of whatever basketball game, they will be unveiling the rankings. So we will be live at some point near the end of the unveiling of the rankings to talk, of course, the next edition. We get to Real MVP showing up tonight.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this evening?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Well, Mark, these one result has really shaken up the landscape of college football in terms of how I think the rankings can go, and it's obviously the Oklahoma-Alabama game. Nothing else impactful really happened last week in college football. Almost some cataclysmic results, like if Florida beat Ole Miss, for example. That would be a pretty sizable result. If Iowa beat USC, that would have been another pretty sizable result. So it was an almost week. But with this Oklahoma-Alabama result, Alabama to me has so many good wins, and their loss to Oklahoma's pretty competitive. They're in the playoffs at 10-2. Like, there's no doubt they're going to be highly regarded by the committee. So my question is, why is almost every ranking I'm seeing having the University of Alabama ranked behind Notre Dame? Like, I understand them behind Oklahoma because the head-to-head result, and you got to honor that. But there is not a single resume point outside of the Florida State loss, which Matt Simic brought up to me yesterday, that would justify Notre Dame being ranked ahead of Alabama.
I've got Alabama at 8 and Notre Dame at 12. That's my ranking right now. And of course, Alabama has wins against Georgia, which was strengthened by their win against Texas, a demolition against Texas, by the way. The Vanderbilt win by double digits, a Vandy team that is now 8-2. The Mizzou game is not a crushing win by Alabama, but a strong opponent.
Yeah, they'll be
ranked at 7-3. They beat Tennessee by 17. Tennessee is a 7 or 8-3, 7-3.
7-3. They'll be ranked as well.
And LSU is now 6-4 with a win against Arkansas. So that's, not a great win, but it's a depth win. So we're looking at what I would consider to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good wins, or wins that should be taken into consideration on Alabama's side. And then again, the Oklahoma loss is nothing to be ashamed of, although Alabama, of course, was playing at home. They actually dominated statistically in that game. They moved the ball better. They moved the ball between the 20s. Oklahoma just made big plays in that game, especially defensively, where Notre Dame has no wins that come anywhere close to the Georgia win. And then you would put the USC win on the Vanderbilt plane.
Right. And then after that, it's a lot of nothing.
And then it drops off a cliff. Yes.
So
maybe. Yes.
My thing is, I think the committee's going to do what I believe is the right thing, and I think the loser of this week was Notre Dame football, not because they lost the football game, but Oklahoma has now guaranteed to jump Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's margin of error was maybe 1 or 2 spots at most. So if Notre Dame's ceiling was the number 9 seed, now it's at absolute the number 10 seed. And it's not because Notre Dame did anything wrong, it's because a team passed them in the rankings. Does that make sense?
Sure, of course it does. They did get Texas somewhat out of the way.
Yeah, but the expectancy of Oklahoma beating Alabama and Texas beating Georgia, probably most times you would expect both of them to fall off and go 9-3. And now, if you're again Michigan and USC, and this is where I kind of want to talk, we're having another chain results happening here. Because Oklahoma beat Bama, Notre Dame beat USC, and then Michigan lost to USC, and so we can have this massive chain of results to where I think the SEC teams are going to be at top, Notre Dame is going to be sandwiched in the middle, and then the Big Ten teams are still going to be at the bottom. And especially for Michigan, like if they're compared against Oklahoma, well, now they've got the same record. And Michigan goes out there, beats Ohio State. They're going to be ranked number 1 at the time, but they're going to probably fall to 4, 5, or 6. So that'll be a comparable win to Oklahoma going to beat Alabama.
Yep.
So I think Michigan's ceiling took a massive hit because of Oklahoma beating Alabama to where, and I know John Deano and the Michigan fans think I'm biased and stuff for saying that they're not guaranteed to make the playoffs at 10-2. I think it's more likely they're out than in at 10-2, to be honest with you, just because there's not enough room for these teams.
Well, I can't say this for sure, but in talking to you, I can at least say it for sure from your vantage point. I can't speak for these other people that are arguing on the Michigan side. And I'm not saying that Michigan's out at 10-2. I'm not saying that they're in, but you're taking into consideration the entire landscape. Michigan fans, of course, just like any other fan base, I'm not picking on Michigan fans, tend to look at their situation strictly against some type of made up standard that has nothing to do with trying to fit X number of teams into 11 spots. It has everything to do with just, we're Michigan, we're 10-2, we beat Ohio State, so we should be in the playoffs without looking at anything else. That's what they're doing.
I understand, but it could be frustrating. Like I was talking to John, he's like, "You've got Vanderbilt ranked ahead of us." Like it's like, yeah, Vanderbilt's better than you right now. I'm sorry, Vanderbilt's got the better resume than you right now.
Yeah, I've got Vandy at 9 and Michigan at 16. I don't even have them in the same vicinity.
Right, and that's another team. If Vanderbilt goes in 2, they'll beat Tennessee. Tennessee will probably be a borderline top 25 team. Like, how do you leave a Vanderbilt team that's won 10 games in the best conference in America by a wide margin, who's only 2 losses on the road, one of them by 3 points, one of them is going to be to maybe the number 2 team in the country in Alabama if they beat Texas A&M, which I think is pretty likely because Texas A&M, I don't want to say they're fraudulent because fraudulent is a very strong word, but I don't think they're as good as 10-0. I think a product of them being 10-0 is their schedule and them playing mostly at bottom half SEC teams. Now, they're still one of the 12 best teams in the country, and they still belong in the college football playoff. But are they on the same tier as Alabama and Georgia? I don't think so. I think they're the tier below the Ole Miss level team. But
no Alabama, no Georgia, no Ole Miss on the Texas A&M schedule. No Oklahoma.
Yeah, no Texas, no Missouri either.
Well, Texas is coming, but yes.
Yeah.
Oh, they beat Missouri.
Oh, yes. Missouri's their best team they've beaten.
Yeah. Texas A&M, let's see. Let's rank their wins. Texas A&M, of course, slid by South Carolina down 27 this past weekend. Best win, Notre Dame by 1. Missouri by 17. A 6-4 LSU team. They did beat them by 24. And those are the winning teams that they've defeated. The Mississippi State games, again, I do take into consideration, especially if they're dominant wins, beating teams like Auburn, Mississippi State, and Florida, who have shown to be competitive against good teams. But those aren't like landmark wins like
My point
should
is,
be.
at this
Yeah,
point in the season, and them being in the best conference in America, you would expect a little more meat on the bone from a
yeah.
10-0 SEC team.
They dodged a lot of the best teams in the
So,
SEC for
right.
sure.
So would
Yep.
it shock anybody if Alabama went out there and won by 10 to 17 points?
No.
It wouldn't shock me at all. So my point is, if Alabama finishes number 2 in the country, Vanderbilt's only loss would have been at Texas by 3 into the number 2 team in the country. They would have beaten everyone else on their schedule. How is that team left out of the college football playoff? Like, just think about that. At the beginning of the season, if I told you, hey, I'm going to have this team, they're going to have 2 ranked losses, probably inside the top 15. They're going to lose to their worst loss is going to be to the number 2 team on the road by about, 16, 17 points, something like that. And they're going to be left out of the college football playoff.
Yeah, and just to connect the dots for everyone, when DeReal says Vandy lost to the number 2 team in the country, he's talking about Alabama winning the SEC championship game against Texas A&M.
Right. And if they win the SEC championship game and they beat Texas A&M and Georgia and all that stuff, they're going to be ranked ahead. Listen, their 2 losses, I understand they've got 2 losses. It's going to be weird seeing a 2-loss team as the number 2 team in the country. I understand it. But they're probably going to be number 2.
Yeah, we've been in line for that. It's fallen off, but I can think of a few occasions where we've been in line for that to have happened. Auburn in 2017 would be one example. But yeah, because the Big Ten championship game loser is going to most likely be superseded by either an undefeated Texas A&M team, let's say, or even an Alabama 2-loss team that just notched wins against, Auburn, Texas A&M, earlier win against Georgia, Vanderbilt, a 2-point loss against Oklahoma. Yes.
So is the most important thing in this rankings where Notre Dame and Alabama is, I think, or is the most important thing where BYU is going to be? Because I've seen some people have BYU in the top 10. And if BYU's in the top 10, then that means they're probably going to get screwed because they're going to lose the Big 12 title game and they're going to be out.
Then why would the BYU ranking be as important as the Notre Dame and Alabama rankings? Are we talking about BYU running the table, defeating Texas Tech, and then they both get in?
No, I'm saying, okay, it's harder for people conceptually, and I think it'll be harder for the committee to leave a team that loses their conference championship game to be out of the college football playoff. So if they're ranked number 10 and they're in the college football playoff, they win their final 2 games. And then the reason they're out is because they lose to Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game. I'm not sure if they're going to abide by their rule last year or not. I think that'll be a hard sell for the committee. That's why.
It would be a difficult sell to me for sure if BYU loses the Big 12 championship game and has 2 losses and is put up against any team in the SEC with 2 losses and gets the nod.
Oh, I know, but you know how all the people that believe in the conspiracy theories and all this SEC bias and, whatever stupid bias they believe in, they'll say, well, this is proof it's rigged, or this is proof they're against us, or all that stuff. When they don't.
If this does in fact happen, BYU's last 2 games of the season are against nobody substantial, correct?
Yeah, I think it's Central Florida and West Virginia.
Yeah, there you go. So BYU, who I have at number 14, best win Utah by a field goal.
Oh, no, they play Cincinnati in West Virginia. Sorry. They play Cincinnati this week.
Cincinnati, okay win. At this point, Cincinnati 8-4 at best when it's all said and done. So BYU is looking at, best win, Utah by 3. Then it's either TCU by 31, and they're wilting down the stretch, and Iowa State by 2 touchdowns. And those are the 2. They beat Arizona in overtime, who's now 7-3, who will be fringe top 25. We'll see if they get ranked this week. Probably not, but they might. Lost to Texas Tech by 22. Yes, if BYU loses a close Big 12 championship game, there's going to be a lot of argument there.
Right. When in my point, I don't think there really should be, but the committee really, really put them in a box last year by openly, publicly saying, if you lose your conference title game, we're not going to drop you.
Yeah.
Like, that was the key takeaway, I would think, from last year that they just pushed as their chips in the middle. Also, with their Utah ranking, like, Utah being at 12 or 13 is really hurting how far BYU can fall. Because I don't believe BYU is one of the 12, 13, or 14 best teams in the country. I just don't. But Utah being that highly regarded with the 2 losses is really hamstrung where BYU is. Final thing I'll ask about is with Texas losing last week and having 3 losses, do they fall? Like, how far do they fall? Because I've seen the AP poll has them around 19, 20, somewhere in that range. It wouldn't shock me if the committee has them at 15 or 16 that high, to be honest with you, because I understand they got crushed by Georgia, but as weird as it is to say, like, Texas has lost to Ohio State, Georgia, and Florida, and their wins I still think are better than most of the ACC teams out there. Like, I think their resume is still better than Georgia Tech, who's 8-1. They're obviously better than Virginia. So it'll be close between them, Michigan, USC. I don't know where they fall, but I think that's the team with the most variance.
I have Texas at 18 and Virginia at 19 and Georgia Tech at 17. That's how I've got them lined up. Georgia Tech 17, Texas 18, Virginia 19. That's how I see it.
Okay. So you think they're very comparable, those ACC teams in Texas now, basically?
In terms of a resume, yes. That was a 25-point loss against Georgia. Now, it's a 25-point loss that was 14-10, like in the fourth quarter or early, somewhere deep into the second half. So I do think that hopefully this committee watches the games and kind of watches what's going on, because Georgia was clearly the better team, won decisively, but it wasn't like it was 28-0 in the first quarter and then they just breezed to a 25-point win.
I got you. And do you think the 9-3 Texas argument has any weight to it because of the size of loss?
Yeah, I think that is so damaging that the Georgia lost by 25 and that Texas A&M barely beat South Carolina has to be a slight factor in that Texas A&M showing to be a weak, relatively speaking, 10-0.
Right. And I know it's crazy to think, I think there is a small chance that Georgia is ranked ahead of Texas A&M. I do think there is a small chance of that happening this week. I think the Big Ten as well, when I talked to Matt Zimick, he was talking about 3 or 4 teams making the college football. Like, I just think 3 is the absolute ceiling for the Big Ten. I think if Oregon loses this week, I think this is not a play-in game for USC Oregon. I think if Oregon loses, they're both out this week.
Okay, so USC beats Oregon. They run the table. They're 10-2. USC can't get in.
I don't think they can jump Notre Dame at 10-2. And I think at the end of the season, I think Miami's going to jump back over Notre Dame because I'm not sure if you watched the Miami-NC State game, but Miami dominated NC State much better than Notre Dame dominated NC State. And Heather Dinich a few weeks ago said that the main reason speculated that the reason the committee was going to rank Notre Dame ahead of Miami was because of recent performance. Well, if Miami's recent performance is they're playing teams Notre Dame beat, and they're beating them by a much wider margin and looking more dominant doing it, I would think Miami would go back ahead of Notre Dame.
Well, if I recall, Notre Dame beat NC State 36-7, and Miami won 41-7. So at least just based on the scoreboard, that's inconsequential. Now,
it's inconsequential to us, but maybe to the committee who said that as their reason, it might be consequential. That's my only point.
You're going to differentiate a 29-point win and a 34-point win?
From what I understood and what I took away is the reason the committee ranked Miami so low to start off the AP the ranking was because they were worried about Miami's
Sure.
recent performance.
Yes.
If there are now recent performances that are comparable to Notre Dame, a team they've beaten, then I would believe they would rank Miami back ahead of Notre Dame at the end of the season.
Well, it so happens, as you well know, that Miami's got a date with Pitt in 2 weeks. And obviously Notre Dame just rolled them. So there's another comparison point.
Yes. And I think Miami should and will take care of business with Pitt. And to me, the problem is not that like USC or these teams don't have good resumes. They all do, of course. It's just you're just running out of spots because the G5 has to get one, the ACC has to get one. 5 SEC teams are going to be in the college football playoff. There's 2 Big Ten teams. Like, you run out of spots real quick.
Okay, before I let you go, DeReal, let's run this USC scenario. They're 10-2. Let's say they're as impressive as possibly can be reasonably against Oregon and UCLA. USC sitting at 10-2. Michigan loses. They beat Michigan anyway. So Michigan's not a factor. Oregon beats Washington. They're 10-2. And then you got what happens in the SEC is Bama's in as an SEC champion, combination Bama, Texas A&M. They're both in because they went to Atlanta for the conference championship game. Let's say Georgia loses to Georgia Tech. Let's make this as reasonably easy as for USC as possible. Georgia's 10-2. Ole Miss is, they're going to go 11-1. Oklahoma's, what if Oklahoma loses?
I don't think they are going to lose. I'm looking at the last game.
I don't think they're going to lose either, but they've got LSU and Missouri, so it's not going to shock anyone if they lose one of those games. They're not that good.
I still think there's an argument Oklahoma at 9-3 is better than a 10-2 USC team.
Yeah, but let's say Oklahoma loses. They're 9-3. Don't we have one from the ACC, one from the Big 12, one from the G5, Notre Dame? That's 4. Ohio State, Indiana,
Alabama, Texas A&M, Georgia,
Texas A&M, Georgia, Ole Miss, 10.
Georgia Tech, I would assume would get in probably.
I thought I went ACC. ACC, Big 12. That's
no.
2.
I'm assuming they could get an at-large spot. Georgia Tech
Over USC.
If they beat Georgia, I think that Georgia win would by far be the best win out of the team. I don't think they would get in. I think they should be a factor though.
And lose the ACC championship game to Virginia.
Yeah, I know it's weird, but
have a loss against NC State.
I understand, but is the committee going to value losing the conference championship game? If they aren't and they're ranked inside the top 10, and you would think a Georgia Tech team that's 11-1 who beat Georgia they would be inside the top 10. Would they fall out?
Yeah. Well, the 4 automatics from the SEC: Texas A&M, Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss.
Right.
ACC, Big 12, Ohio State, Indiana, G5, Notre Dame. There's 10. 2 spots left. Doesn't that give USC a spot along with some combination of Oklahoma?
They could.
Oregon?
There's still arguments, I would say, for Georgia Tech, BYU, Vanderbilt as well.
Oh, Vandy. Yeah.
So even in the best case scenario, they're not a lock to make the college football playoff.
No, I don't think they're a lock, but I'm just trying to make a better case for USC than it sounds like you are, that they don't have a path.
Okay. Maybe they don't have a path is a little over exaggerating it. They've got a very narrow path to make the college football playoff. Like, they're easily more on the outside than in if they beat Oregon, even if they go 10-2 and beat Oregon. Because at 5 you're already dunking it down to 4 SEC teams. 5 is going to be the minimum for the SEC. That's just the way it is. I hate it. Even if Oklahoma loses to Missouri would finish 9-3. There would be a little bit of an argument for Missouri making the college football playoff. I know we haven't discussed Missouri.
But what if Vandy loses to Tennessee? We could still go 4 with the SEC. They could drop to 4. right?
If it drops to 4, then you would have an argument between Georgia Tech, BYU. I guess you would throw Utah in there if they wanted to go really crazy. Vanderbilt. So there's still some teams out there that would have an argument to make the college football playoff.
Well, and if Vandy loses to Tennessee, Tennessee's 9.
Oh, yeah, they're out. So it'd be 3 teams for 2 spots. Well, 4 with Oklahoma.
So
If a-
I do think that USC's got a difficult path, but I do think that it's stronger than your.
Yeah, well, their main problem is they're, according to Vegas, they're probably going to lose this game because they're 10.5-point dogs.
Yeah.
Like, that's shocking to me. 10.5. I mean, I've seen Oregon and USC play all year. I really can't tell when they play equal talented teams the difference between the two. Like, they played Iowa pretty recently, the two teams.
Yep.
I couldn't tell the difference between those two teams. They won basically the exact same way. If anything, USC was slightly better because they completely shut out Iowa in the second half.
Yep.
And they had control of that game throughout the entire fourth quarter.
Vegas likes Oregon. They also love Oregon at home. They were an 8-point favorite against Indiana at home as well, and lost by 10.
Yeah, I don't get it. But anyway, Mark, I look forward to the ranking show when we're completely wrong about these rankings and somebody will randomly be like 12 instead of 10, and that will completely throw everything off.
That could be the case. See you, DeReal. All right. We've got our buddy Keith stopping by. Keith, what's going on tonight?
Hey, how's it going, Mark?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Matt did a good job for you last night carrying the torch.
Absolutely, he did.
It was a lot of fun last night.
For sure.
Yeah. Did you hear my point last night? As we got to stop counting wins. There's going to be way too many 10-2 teams. You got to work your way up into the top 10 to really get a chance at being in this playoff.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think Michigan is in trouble because we were 17 or 21 2 weeks ago. And then we went up to, when we were idle, we went up a few to 17. And if we stay there, we're going to need a bunch of teams to lose in front of us to climb into that top 10.
Well, let's see here. So Texas should be out of Michigan's way. So there's one team that should drop below Michigan. I'm trying to think who else, if there's anybody else that lost this weekend. It was pretty much a tame weekend for upsets.
Yeah, I think that was the only mover last week.
Yeah, so Michigan's probably only going to move up one spot. I'll pull up last week's rankings. Yeah, Michigan obviously has to beat Ohio State and hold that up as the best win in the country.
Right. And maybe that'll kick us up 5, 6, 7 spots, but that's what it's gonna take, something like that. Now a good win against Maryland, and this goes for everybody that's down at 14 and below. You've got an uphill climb to get in the top 10.
All right, so here we go. We've got so the teams that need to get out of Michigan's way would be, Notre Dame's got Pitt and Stanford. If Pitt beats Notre Dame, that would be enormous for Michigan. That would be enormous for both Michigan and USC.
Yeah.
Notre Dame beat USC head to head.
Yeah, I see USC has got an uphill climb too because they're only one ahead of us.
Yes, but they've got the head to head in convincing fashion against Michigan. So
absolutely.
You got to figure that's an automatic tiebreaker between those two. So yes, Michigan would be helped considerably by Notre Dame losing to Pitt, or Notre Dame losing to Who are they playing this week? I totally lost it. Notre Dame's got, they just beat Pitt. I just said it like 3 seconds ago. Who are they playing? They got Stanford in 2 weeks.
Notre
My
Dame.
goodness. What's that?
I'm not up on the schedule as much as you are.
Oh my goodness. I just said it like a second ago.
It wasn't Pitt, was it? Wasn't Pitt, was it?
No, they just beat Pitt.
They
Notre
just
Dame
beat.
plays. I'm sure somebody's put it in the chat, but I can't see the chat right this second. Notre Dame's got, I got the schedule right here. I can't believe when I see this. Oh, Notre Dame's got Syracuse? Okay. So Notre Dame's got Syracuse and Stanford. So they're if they lose one of those games, obviously, forget it. Those are awful teams, but that really drags down the likelihood that Notre Dame's going to lose a game. So the likelihood of Notre Dame losing a game is next to nothing.
Yeah.
So Michigan and USC are going to have to deal with Notre Dame at 10-2. And that's not a good thing for Michigan because they get in line behind USC and USC is behind Notre Dame in line.
Right. Yep.
Michigan is going to pass BYU if they beat Ohio State. So I don't think that they're a factor. They're just not going to be strong enough, have a strong enough schedule. Michigan's going to pass them.
Are you saying they're going to go from 18 to 10?
Well, this doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
Meaning the committee doesn't say, well, Michigan's 18, we're going to jump them to 10 because they just beat Ohio State. It's all connected. Yes, they're gonna vault if they beat Ohio State. Absolutely. They're going to be ranked ahead of BYU if they beat Ohio State. Yes, they will be. But are they going to jump Vandy? If Vandy beats Tennessee, it would help. It would help Michigan considerably if Vanderbilt loses to Tennessee. That gets them out of the way. Miami loses to Pitt.
Well, we can't vault SC, can we?
No. If USC beats Oregon.
So that's so then Michigan and SC would both have to vault up into the playoff zone, and that's going to bump 2 other people out. That's going to bump 2 people out. See if Michigan vaults ahead of BYU and so is 11th or 10th, that means USC has to be one above them, right?
Well, wait a minute. I didn't necessarily say that Michigan was making the playoffs because they were beating Ohio State. I said that they were going to be ranked ahead of BYU. Those are 2 different things.
Right. So maybe BYU comes down 6, Michigan moves up 5, and we're ahead of them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't get us to the playoffs.
Okay, so Michigan wants USC to lose to Oregon. Okay, so get them out of the way. USC loses to Oregon, and there's 1 team advances from the ACC, 1 team from the Big 12, 1 team from the Group of 5. We can't really see Notre Dame losing. So there's 4 teams, Big 12, ACC, Group of 5, and Notre Dame. There's 4. Ohio State, Indiana is 6. Oregon is set. Well, let's put, Oregon's at 7. Unless Oregon loses to Washington, then that's going to help Michigan considerably. But that we'd be at 7 with Oregon. And now we got 5 spots left, and we've got Michigan and we've got the SEC. We got Michigan and Oregon, and we've got the SEC for 5 spots. And Georgia, Texas A&M, Bama, and Ole Miss are all but locks. Unless something unforeseeable happens. Alabama loses to Auburn. That can happen. Then Bama's gone. They're done, most likely. Oklahoma can lose one of its last 2 games and go to 9-3, although there would be a heck of an argument in that room if Oklahoma's 9-3 with a better schedule and they beat Michigan by 18 points. So Oklahoma's not necessarily dead at 9-3.
Yeah. I would love to see Michigan run the table and USC run the table. Then you'd have Oregon, USC, and Michigan all at 10-2 and cause all kinds of chaos in the committee.
Well, that's a pretty clear-cut decision if it comes down to those three. USC would have beaten both of them.
Yeah. But, Oregon Nation and Michigan Nation will be screaming up and down.
Screaming about what? They lost.
Yeah, but we were 10-2 and everybody else was 10-2. And then we, like you say, Michigan would argue we got the best win in the country.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's a difficult decision for the committee. If they've got one spot left and they've got USC, Michigan, and Oregon at 10-2, USC is the team.
What if they go 4-4 in the SEC and the Big Ten?
They go 4-4.
Yeah. The SEC loses one of their guys down at 10-2s at the bottom, and USC gets in over Michigan, though. In that case, it would be Oregon and USC get in.
Okay, there are 4 teams that are almost a complete lock in the SEC.
That's right.
Except if Alabama loses to Auburn, then that could change. But Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, and who am I missing? Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Bama, and Georgia are there in the SEC. Now, Bama could lose to Auburn, go to 9-3. Oklahoma could lose to either Missouri or LSU, go to 9-3. Although, again, if I'm in the committee, I'm putting in Oklahoma over Michigan at 9-3 because they beat their brains out and they play arguably the toughest schedule in the country. But we also have Vanderbilt at 10-2 if they win out.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I was saying is that it doesn't look like that Michigan or USC have really much of a path to the playoffs. It's a long shot for both of us. And this strength of record and the mechanisms that the SEC cried about all off season, I call them the crybaby conference, that got in there, they're making the games meaningless. It looks to me like Michigan's last 2 games are meaningless. Even if they win them, we're not going to be in the playoffs.
When you say that the SEC is crying about this, what are you talking about? SEC fans?
Yeah,
Greg
SEC
Sankey?
Nation, including Gary Sankey, that he cried all off season that he had 3 teams that were better than 3 teams that made the playoffs.
Yes.
So they put in the strength of record, and they put in the looking at head-to-head and common opponents competition more. So they changed the weights of some of them that are very favorable to the SEC.
Why
because
is it
the
favorable
SEC
to the SEC? Can you answer me that?
What's that?
Why is it the computer doesn't know who plays from the SEC or who plays from the ACC or the SEC or the Big 10 or the Big 12? I am asking you a question. Why is what you just cited, the strength of record, favorable to the SEC?
I say it's two things.
Okay.
I say yes. One is the head-to-head competition and the non-conference schedule heavily favored the SEC this year.
Bingo.
Okay. The other thing is the SEC got very favorable high rankings to begin the seasons out in the preseason polls that very much generate the polls up during the season up to that. So they got a running start in
Well,
the.
hopefully that has nothing to do with it.
What's that?
I said, hopefully that has nothing to do with it.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully by
It
the
should
end
have
of
nothing to do with
the
it.
CFP, the preseason rankings don't matter anymore, right? Because obviously Texas was number one in most of those rankings, and they're out now. So yeah, but I think this is is there any meaningful game in the ACC? There's some people that are talking about the ACC being excluded from the playoff, that they're not going to be one of the top 5 ranked conference champions.
Okay, so that was a much bigger possibility 1 week ago before Duke lost to Virginia. So Duke was the one team that, had they won the ACC championship, and they still have like a snowball's chance in hell of getting to the ACC championship game. They're 4-2 in the conference, but they were 4-1 in playing Virginia last week. That if Duke won the ACC, they would have been 9-4, and they could have been behind 2 other conference champions out of the group of 5. But
so that's clearing itself up, though. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, but now there's a couple meaningful games again, but we're looking at with this current format out there, and if they punish teams for losing the conference championship game, because last year, all the teams except for the ACC, it was understood that ACC was only going to get one in, so whoever lost that, when Miami lost to Clemson, they were out.
No. SMU lost to Clemson and they were in.
Oh, SMU lost to Clemson and they were in.
Yep.
Who was the ACC entry then?
Clemson and SMU.
Clemson and SMU. Okay, so Miami didn't even make the championship game. Okay, so they were both in then too. Yes. So the playoff committee last year treated like if you made the championship game, you were going to be in the playoff. And if that does not hold this year, they're gonna destroy the conference championship game.
Let me slightly tweak what you just said, because you're on the money that the committee told us that they were not going to hold the championship game result against the loser. That's different than saying they're all guaranteed to be in, because Iowa State lost the Big 12 championship game and they weren't in the playoff.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that was I was thinking of that instance
against anyone,
right?
Which is stupid. But I get the reason why. It's not completely stupid. I shouldn't say it that way. There are some things that are completely ridiculous decisions. I understand that they didn't want to penalize a team that advanced to the conference championship game in favor of other teams that were just sitting at home.
Right.
But
like the Penn State, Ohio State predicament they had last year.
Yes.
Yes. Because when Penn State lost the Big Ten championship game, they were still second in the Big Ten.
Yes.
Yeah. So the committee wouldn't put them below Ohio State because Ohio State was fourth, I believe, in the Big Ten, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's the predicament there, is that when somebody loses the champion, I hope the loser of the championship game is not punished just like they weren't last year. Although, like you say, Iowa State, it was understood that only one team was getting in from the Big 12, and the loser wasn't going to be in there.
Well, see, here's the reason why I don't think you can just count half of a football game. The winners of these conference championship games are rewarded. Then they obviously played someone, and therefore their performance also has a flip of the side of the coin, other performance. So how do you completely ignore a performance? That doesn't make any sense. If you're going to acknowledge and reward one performance, let's say Georgia Tech wins the ACC championship game and beats Miami 51-0. I don't know how you can ignore that and say, nope, didn't happen. We're ignoring that. If I had a chance to interview the committee following the conference championship games last year, I would have asked them, my first question would have been, did you watch the conference championship games? And if their response was yes, I would have said, why? You said that you were not taking these conference championship games into consideration. Why would you possibly watch them? Number one, you don't have to watch them. Number two, that would skew your rationale. And then my second question, let's say they said, no, we didn't watch any of the conference championship games. I would have said, did somebody give you the score to the conference championship games? Do you know the scores of the conference championship games? And if they would have said, yes, we know the scores of the conference, that would have been the next thing I would have said. You shouldn't know the scores of the conference championship games because you are telling us that you are not putting weight on that. So it doesn't matter what the score of the conference championship game. It only matters who won the game.
Yeah, I'm going to use your answer to it. It's because it's the whole they're looking at the whole picture. They're not looking at one individual game.
Well, of course, they should be looking at the whole picture.
Yeah, and that what happened during the season and what happened during the game and what the current picture looks like now. And so I can see that, to me, is a satisfactory answer by the committee.
Well, I don't know what the answer was by the committee because I don't think anyone asked that question. That's the question, the two questions I would have asked.
Yeah, well, they do. I can't remember what questions were asked and answered, but the committee does take 2 or 3 questions after every ranking, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
what we would need to see, and if we could add more metrics to what we see, which is just the record and the ranking, and we're looking at the AP here, I think, so it doesn't even matter. Are we? Yeah. Regardless, we should see the range of rankings for each team. Like each committee member should give a ranking, and we should see that Ohio State ranged from number 1 to number 3. That Indiana ranged from number 1 to number 3, Texas A&M number 1 to number 3, et cetera, down the line. So we at least know, okay, there's a committee member that ranked Michigan 12, and there's another committee member that ranked them 23rd.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Points doesn't quite do that, does it?
Well, again, that's the AP.
That's AP. Yeah.
They get rid of the rankings the day of the ESPN banishes the rankings from their page a few hours before they. Let's see here. Anyway, we're done for the night anyway. So we'll be back, and we don't need to delve back into this. But anything else, Keith?
Nope. Like I say, Matt put on a real fun show last night, and yours was good tonight too.
Thank you, Keith. Have a good night.
All right. Always good to talk to you, Mark.
So we will be back after the college football playoff rankings are revealed. So that's going to be about 9 p.m., I believe. About 9 p.m. Eastern time. So when the rankings are revealed, we'll be right back here, and we will know exactly what's going on and who's ranked where, and we will respond and take your calls right here at the Voice of College Football. So you be here, grab some folks that love college football, blast it out on social media, let people know that we are talking college football rankings with all of you. And the rankings reveal tonight, approximately 9 p.m. Eastern time. And we will see you then.